I found the edgiest fashion brand in the world.
And I like it.
And no, it's not Enfant Riche de Prime. It's not
Carol Christian Powell.
So you may be asking yourself, what could be edgier than a convicted pedo front and center on a shirt? Or a jacket made out of stitched together pig vomit or whatever the hell CCP does? Well, I have a feeling that many of you would strongly prefer to wear the Yeezy White Lives Matter t-shirt than any of the pieces we're going to look at in this video. So, what is it? It is
Andro Musia.
And I have 5 pieces from them here.
Cool. Wow.
And don't worry, we are going to look deeply at each of these and see the razor-sharp edge and meaning within them. Now, you may be saying to yourself,
Yeah, the luxury. Usually I totally agree with you. Like, I recognize that you are a very smart and handsome and stylish and knowledgeable and strong hairline guy, but I don't see how some random small ERD worship designer could be edgier than all those other brands.
oh, you sweet, simple creature. Thank you for the totally correct and valid compliment.
Wow.
But I do totally understand where you're coming from, so let's not ignore the elephant in the room here. Yes, this Andro Musia clothing bears some striking similarities to the heavily distressed, treated, vintage punk rock influenced designs of much larger and more established brands like Enfant Riche de Prime, Pally Hollywood, St. Michael, and others. But Andro Musia's edginess doesn't necessarily come from the specific cuts or treatments, or even from the graphics themselves when looked at in a vacuum. I mean, a t-shirt that says Warborn on it probably isn't going to raise half as many eyebrows as a hoodie that says Goth Girl Sucks Soul Through Dick. Let's be real here. Andro Musia is a small, young brand that admittedly does not have nearly the depth and breadth of design as those mainstay brands within this niche. But despite all of that, I still believe they are the edgiest brand in the world right now. Why is that? Well, it's because Andro Musia is
Israeli.
Oh my God, I can't believe you do this to me. I've been misled. You've been stringing me along and piquing my interest in a genocide brand. Oh God, I'll never forgive you, and I'll never forgive myself for watching this trash.
Welcome to the single most inadvisable video I have ever made. Join the Patreon, private Discord, private sales, exclusive videos, join it up. Listen, stay with me. I think we can get somewhere interesting here, and I think it's important right now for me to lay out some starting principles that I believe in so that we can move forward from a place of mutual understanding and respect. So first, I believe that the state of Israel is committing a genocide against the Palestinian people. Second, I believe that anything coming out of Israel should be viewed with suspicion. And third, I'm perfectly fine with Israel as a state no longer existing if it means a world with less violence and atrocity than we exist in today. So, with all of that being said, why am I making a video about an Israeli fashion brand right now, in this day and age, despite all of the things I just acknowledged? Well, because I like fashion that exists on the edge of good taste, that makes the wearer and viewer look at the world through a different lens, and that illuminates uncomfortable realities about human existence. Now, listen, I went to college, so can't boast the boaster. I know how to fill up a 10-page essay with academic-sounding phrases that don't actually mean anything, but I do truly believe all of that. I think fashion is art, and when art confronts you with uncomfortable truths, maybe not even your truths, it's a worthwhile and maybe even beautiful thing. But let's address some of the very fair criticisms head on. First of all, I am certain that the first reaction of many people will be to denounce this, and me, because I'm supporting Israel and helping propagandize, aiding in Hezbollah, to use a even more specific term. And the short answer to that is, well, no. The long answer is much more complex, but here's the reality as I see it. The kids that created and run this brand are Israeli citizens. I'm not denying it, they're not. And every Israeli citizen is conscripted, forced into the IDF, the Israeli army, for a time in their late teens, I believe. Now, on the one hand, you could say that Every Israeli citizen, then, is therefore a war criminal and valid target. And while I understand the desire to write off every Israeli as evil because it makes the grim realities of the conflict easier to bear, I do think it's also fair to look at everyday Israelis as victims themselves. They're not all angels. I mean, these kids have been fed propaganda since birth, and many, probably most, never break out of that mindset that the state has instilled in them. I recognize that, but for some subset of Israelis, they were forced at quite a young age to take part in atrocities that made them realize the brutal nature of their state and gave them a unique and nihilistic perspective on their own existence. And I think there is worthwhile material to mine from an artist who's in that particular headspace. Not supporting the state of Israel, not denying the brutalities being committed by them, but darkly commenting on it and trying to make sense of the war-torn dystopia that is the only world they've ever known. I think there are two pieces I have here from Andro Musia that speak directly to that perspective. So this right here is the box I received from Israel. Yeah, don't cancel me right away. And held within is an accessory that's in there. Very excited to look at that. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 shirts. The branding is immediately dark and nihilistic. This garment has been crafted/destroyed by Andro Musia. Handle with care. Very much playing into that, hand-treated, hand-distressed thing. And maybe most importantly, this is kind of like their tagline. The world has already ended. Build something new. Just completely filled with pure, dark nihilism. Like, there's no way around it. That's straight up. And this is the first piece that I really want to check out right here. And right off the bat, something that we will spend less time talking about here, but I think is notable, is just that from a core clothing level, I think they're doing it right. Like, this is a beautiful thin cotton with this kind of ribbing, treated in a very careful, natural, and authentic way. And the cut isn't just like squared off either. It's kind of broad, and then you see it narrows a bit. There's a lot of thought being put into these cuts. But the graphics are really what's most important here. The first thing you have front and center is, I don't know if there's any way around this to say it, a child soldier. And I think the meaning couldn't be more clear here. I know that the people who run this brand are very young. They're kids running around Tel Aviv trying to make, nihilistic and socially conscious, dark art. But they were drafted forcibly into their military at a young age. Obviously not this young, I would hope, but from this age, they were being prepared for that. And very importantly and symbolically, all around the head, a hammer, and a series of nails. And then at the back, it's just dark. All right, there's no way around this. All they gave me was a hammer. Now, does that sound like a person who is perfectly at peace with the actions of themselves, their colleagues in their government? No, absolutely not. That is a deep self-hatred and confusion and complexity, and I appreciate that they are, walking up to the table with this. It's not forgiving anything. It's not trying to justify anything in my mind. It is just speaking a very, very uncomfortable truth. They feel like they don't have any recourse in this matter except for the hammer that they were given. That is the only valid path that their state gave them, and that's really uncomfortable. But I think worthwhile to present to the public. And here's the other one I really wanted to look at here, and you'll see right away that this is a very different cut. This is the cut that they call the slut fit. And that is essentially a kind of like cropped, tighter, more baby doll, like short sleeves. The fabric, I would say, is a little bit heavier, like it hasn't been, treated as heavily. And really, I think the best way to think about this, even though this isn't a raglan sleeve piece, is this is the difference between like a standard ERD t-shirt and one of the raglan sleeves. But again, the important part is the graphic and the dark reality of it. Warborn, with again a photo of a very, very, very young soldier with a nail through his head. And I think this gets at the exact same themes. There's a very, very cohesive thematic consistency throughout these pieces, and that is the kind of futility and inevitability of the lives that these people were handed. And I don't think we should feel any sorrier for them at all than their opponents in this conflict, but I do think it's a reality that's being spoken to. They only have one reality. They only know one life, and this is the life that they know. And I think it's speaking to the fact that, like, listen, I don't think they're angels. I've talked to them enough to know that they are not war hungry. They are not pleased with what their country does, with what they have been forced to do. But I don't think it's for me sitting, comfortably in America to purity test them. I think I've seen enough to know that they are coming from a, truthful and compassionate and non-hateful place. And I think if this is how everybody on Earth felt about the conflict, the world would be a much better place than it is today. Now, I'm not an idiot. At least I don't think so. Some of you in the comments may be saying so right now, but I know the most common arguments against the point of view that Israelis within Israel deserve a voice on the public stage. The argument would be the only way that they could even begin to atone for their sins would be to denounce Israel, leave it, and dedicate the rest of their lives to fighting against their former state's actions. And even that would be looked at by many as the bare minimum to be considered a slightly valid human.
But in a totally just world, you shouldn't even let someone be the local dog catcher if they've ever exhibited any sort of positive feelings about the state of Israel.
They would probably still spend most of their lives being denounced as like a Mossad, PSYOP, Zionist shill, despite whatever words or actions they could conjure. So, as you can tell, I'm a little critical of that point of view because to me it lacks an ounce of empathy or, reality in and of itself. Like, the average person cannot just pick up and leave whatever country they're in. There are practical issues like passports and visas, personal issues like finances or family that may need to be taken care of, and simply the human reason that someone shouldn't lose their personhood just because of where they were born. In a nutshell, I'd rather have them within Israel critically commenting on the genocide than running away and trying to pretend they're not Israeli for the rest of their life. I mean, if you were to tell me the moral thing to do as an American is to denounce America, run away, and give your life fighting it, I'd be like, yeah, cool in theory, I guess, but no. Like, my whole life is here, and it's not perfect, and my country sucks. It really does, but this is kind of where I'm at in life. And before you talk back to me on that, I will die on the hill that the United States is a more evil country than Israel. Full stop. We're the big bad villain. They're a sidekick. The U.S., okay, is an Ultron in this story, okay? And if you want some backup to what I'm saying, look at the work of artist Otto Dix during the rise of Nazi Germany. The dude made highly critical art against Germany and continued to live there creating art through World War II. In fact, there was a whole degenerate art exhibition held in Germany by the Nazis themselves, supposedly to trash it and show how depraved that art was, but also because they secretly recognized that it was better than the boring main exhibition they were also holding at the time. I don't know. I'm not a huge expert on German Nazi critical art, but what I'm saying is I would be proud to hang that art in my house today and would have been proud to do so at the time too. If you're following my logic but still feel like a knee-jerk need to denounce Andro Musia, I think it's worth asking why. And then there's the financial aspect, and I get it. You'll say that by purchasing pieces from an Israeli brand, I'm funneling money to the Israeli state. The short response to that is yeah, that's kind of true. But it's a really slippery slope, right? If I ran a business, I would really, really hate to be held accountable for what's done with the money that is forcibly being taken from me by my country and funneled into evil stuff, because guess what? A lot of my tax dollars are going to Israel, and to deporting families, and to taking late-night hosts off the air, and to building a fascist's ballroom, and into evil billionaire pockets. Let's not get into a game of moral scorekeeping, because the West will probably lose. Now, are there better places for our money to go? Yeah, absolutely. For example, I would have loved to feature a Palestinian brand in this video. I looked. Okay, oh, how I looked. I swear I did. But I like to feature things that I am genuinely into that work within my style and preferences and the preferences of my audience. And as far as I can see, that doesn't exist within Palestine right now. Maybe that's because the kids that would be turning into fashion designers as adults are instead being killed as teens or children. And it's why I've donated to the Palestine Children's Relief Fund, and I'd encourage you to do the same. The link's in the description if you're interested in that. And just to put it out there, that's not like a balancing the scales type of donation. It's not like I see buying Andro and Musia clothing as a moral wrong that I need to right. I'm donating for the Palestinian kids that I'd like to see grow up to be designers or whatever the hell else they want to be in life because, like I said, I believe there's a fucking genocide happening. Now, let's get to the even more uncomfortable part. The Israeli state became the behemoth it is for a sound reason. No, I'm not talking about Zionism. That's a bunch of weird bullshit. Like, do I wish Israel had just been founded on some uninhabited island somewhere? Yes, deeply. But that's not the world we live in. No. So many Jewish people ended up in Israel because they are people of a shared heritage who have historically been run out of many of the places they've tried to live throughout history. They just happened to flee to a safe space that had been founded through committing evil acts of their own, running indigenous people off their ancestral land. Now, I think the word anti-Semitism is way overused right now. It's used by conservatives and Israel apologists to hand-wave or obfuscate a bunch of really heinous shit. Now, that being said, it is a real thing that has historically existed and that has understandably led to many Jews over the past decades looking for a place where they won't face that type of adversity. Enter Israel. And if you don't get what I'm saying, this is kind of like how in the best movies, the villain has an understandable and justifiable origin story, but one that in no way forgives their later villainous actions. But regardless, I think you have a lot of well-meaning people within Israel looking around in horror saying, look, these are my people with this shared cultural and ethnic history, and there's truth and beauty in that shared experience, but now we've trapped ourselves within this safe space, and we've become the villains in our efforts to keep it a safe space. And I think that tension is what a lot of Andro Musia's work speaks to. This right here is the sort of standard logo t-shirt for the brand. This is their main visual motif. And that is also shared with the accessory they sent me right here, because this is a cast metal leather belt with this same motif. And listen, I certainly think that there are elements shared with the earlier pieces we looked at here. Like, it is no coincidence that this is, I believe, a child in chains. It's got that same thematic consistency, but I think this also speaks to, very unfortunately, that shared heritage that many people within Israel have. You know, I think the majority of Israelis are Jewish, and they have this very dark shared history that I think is being spoken to in this piece, you know, with that same harsh reality, that unflinching look that all of their work has. And whether it's the treating of the t-shirt or the way that this leather on the belt is completely cracked, they feel like artifacts from a region at war, and that is the reality. Now, could I make suggestions? Yeah, I wish that there was like a metal loop right here for the other end of the belt to go through, yada yada. Like, they are not a perfect brand. Every product is not perfect, but I think it is maybe some of the most interesting stuff that I have seen in a very long time. And then the final piece that I got from them was another one of these slut fit t-shirts in black. And while this one is another kind of like standard logo piece type of thing, I do think it is very consistent and of a piece with everything else. And I think that's what I respond to here. I mean, okay, so you've got yet another very young person, maybe a woman at this point, holding a scythe. So children, weaponry, darkness, distressing, thrashed, war-torn, all of these things are in the stew here. And I think what I like is, your average TikTok, ERD, ripoff type brand, they are doing stuff like this, kind of, right? But this is the only one I've seen that actually has a reason to be doing it, right? Like, it's not just like, oh, a cool reference, cool photo, cool font, metal font, whatever. No, it's like this stuff it makes sense that it is using dark imagery of children, violent imagery, text and graphics that are worn and faded and cracked and ripped. Like, the narrative is driving the design rather than the design driving the narrative, which even for a brand like ERD, I think the design drives the narrative a lot of the time. And this is one of the only brands in existence where I really think the opposite is happening, and I legitimately appreciate that. And at a very basic clothing level, this stuff is awesome. It fits perfectly into my wardrobe. It's well made with paper-thin cotton, treated to perfection. The cut of the pieces, especially the slut fit t-shirts, is god tier. With a sort of like masculine baby doll type cut, it all just works shockingly well. So the base for these fits, like the non-Andro Musia pieces, we've got the GOA denim jeans from Japan, kind of like a If 6 Was 9 Mud Max ripoff, like boot cut things. And it's good they're boot cut because the boots are Justin boots. They're like these like engineer cowboy boot type things I found. So like nothing crazy, nothing special. Let's let these Andro Musia pieces shine, you know? So starting off with the belt, I mean, I think that the belt itself, while it's a really nice cracked leather, and it fits very well within that narrative that we've been talking about, I think the leather, the belt part of the belt is not the special part. Obviously, the work went into the hammered cross buckle, and that is very, very nice. Like, it's done well. You can tell it is handmade. It doesn't feel just machine done. Like, I had the Alice Hollywood, you know, iron cross belt. That thing felt like it came straight out of a factory in China. You know, this feels handmade and legit and very solid. Only thing I'd say is add that little metal thing to like grab the end of the belt, unless it's supposed to be tucked under. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But let's start with like the regular fit quote unquote t-shirts here. And the first thing to keep in mind is these are incredibly oversized. So for reference, I am a 5'10", 145 pound man. And these, both the black one, the logo one, and the white hammer t-shirt are size extra small. So we're talking about like Balenciaga oversized style stuff here. But they're very thin, they're ribbed, the weight is perfect, they're light, breathable, and the drape is really nice. I don't know if I've had a t-shirt in this type of fit drape quite like this. It's really nice. And then obviously between the piercings on the pants and the wallet chain and the rings and the necklace and stuff, I'm going for a silver kind of thing. So I'll pair this with this bag I got from Barbara Bowie. I have no idea who Barbara Bowie is, but I just want like an exotic bag. So I've got this like silver snakeskin oversized tote here, which I really enjoy. And then you finish it off with like a nice Rick Owens leather jacket and you're rocking, right? It's this punk rock and roll kind of upscale Japanese archive type of fit, and this Andro Musia stuff slots right in there. And then when it comes to the hammer t-shirt, this is by far my favorite graphic that they have released, and I also really like the way they've treated it here. I don't know if this is how they like always operate, but for me they asked if I wanted them treated or not, and I guess so when you order one treated, they like literally hand distress it, all that stuff before sending it off. So I'm glad they did that here because I think it works very, very well, and again is thematic with the rest of the piece. But then by far, my favorite pieces here are the slut fit t-shirts, the Scythe t-shirt in black and the yellow Warborn t-shirt. And the sizing here, complete opposite. So the black one is a size large and the yellow one is a size medium. Keep that in mind. But these, they fit much more for my type of style, the type of look I'm going for, and I think they also layer better. I don't know what's wrong with people because Andro Musia, they were telling me that these don't sell nearly as well as the standard t-shirts. So I mean, I guess if you're watching this and you're interested, buy some of these so that they will keep making them because I love these things. Seriously, make the hammer t-shirt in this cut and I'm in heaven, you know? But anyway, the Scythe t-shirt, I think layers very well. This one fits a bit more comfortably in that size large, but when you're kind of even undersized, like the yellow Warborn t-shirt, I think it honestly looks better. It's a slight bit less comfortable, but like the look of it and the way it fits, the way it hugs, that kind of like baby doll sleeve, this is like, you know, peak for me. So yeah, usually when I get like a big haul from a brand, there are certain pieces that I'm like more into than others. I'm like, oh, I'll probably keep this, won't keep that. Like, I think all of these are gonna stay in the rotation. The regular fit t-shirts I think will work for like everyday wear where you're not layering, but the slut fit t-shirts, they layer so well. So they're absolutely staying in the mix. So You tell me, have I sold you? I've laid out where I'm at. I'm probably aligned with many of you on the horrors happening in the Middle East and my opposition to them, but I think there is value to be found, even if you're just appreciating from afar without buying yourself, and taking in the artistic perspective of some kids within Israel who have been just put through an absolute meat grinder of like propaganda and militarism and nationalism and genocide. That self-hatred and nihilism is maybe the most authentically thought-provoking and edgy art I've seen in the fashion world in my lifetime. Maybe too edgy for you, and that's okay, but I would question it just a bit. Like, why is it okay to wear pieces from a Nepo brand swathed in swastikas and literal Nazis and allusions to Jewish conspiracy? Why is it okay to buy pieces from, have museum exhibitions on Nazi collaborators like Chanel or Hugo Boss? Why would the lowest point on the scale be these scared, scarred, and complex independent artists when the other brands we're throwing money at are perpetuating slave labor around the world or adding to the bottom line of these behemoth conglomerates that are probably funding a lot more of these wars than a single t-shirt sale to a small fashion brand? I'm sure you would have counter arguments to all of those, and I could make them too, I get it. What I'm trying to point out is the illogical nature of drawing lines in one place that conveniently disappear when they're being drawn at something that is less convenient to you. I'm not telling you to buy this stuff. God, no. You could tell me that you personally are never touching this with a 10-foot pole. I accept that. Everyone should make the purchasing decisions that feel right to them. What I won't accept, though, is you calling them evil for making it, or me evil for enjoying it. There's value in it to some degree. It adds to the conversation rather than shuts it down. It gives a new angle to the conflict, one that doesn't demonize Palestinians, nor does it forgive any of Israel's actions. It speaks to a generation of youth within Israel that are nothing more than a weapon on some Israeli general's spreadsheet. They are one single unit in a total number of soldiers, a line item next to guns and missiles and tanks, and these pieces speak to the dehumanization they have faced in that process, and in turn, the dehumanization that gets passed down and applied to their enemies, right? It shows the reality, the singular human level of the cycle of violence that plays out every day across the world. And if this video has felt uneven in the sides of the conflict it's speaking to, that's because one side is kind of too busy being slaughtered to have a proper say in the matter. Hopefully that changes soon and we can see more designs coming out of Palestine. Nothing would make me happier, okay? But usually, we see all of this stuff at a grand scale, right? There are countries, armies, and what about the individual people? What's been done to them and what have they done in turn? It's brutal and it's disgusting and it's uncomfortable, but I urge you to face it head on. Look at this stuff instead of denouncing it so you don't have to reckon with what it says about us. I repeat, not what it says about them, but what it says about us. And that is why Andro Musia is the edgiest fashion brand in the world. Peace.